Are you struggling to stay consistent with your yoga practice? Do weeks or months go by without you even rolling out your mat or heading to the studio? I'm going to tell you the secrets to staying consistent with your yoga practice, so stick around. Welcome to your Off the Blog post. Wherever you're listening to this, make sure you tap subscribe or follow or turn off the notifications, do the things to stay connected. If you're struggling to stay consistent with your yoga practice and this sounds familiar, know that you are not alone. Life is busy. I get it. Schedules fill up, and your yoga practice or your wellness practice often takes a back seat. Consistency is hard, but it doesn't always have to feel like a struggle. And that's what I want to talk to you about today. I'm going to share 2 simple yet super transformative secrets that will help you build a sustainable yoga practice. I know that these work because I practice them myself, and it's what I've used in the last 10 years of being a yoga teacher and trying to navigate as consistent yoga practice through all of the life transitions that I've been through, whether it's having kids, going through the pandemic, being married, getting divorced. All of those scenarios have come and gone, and I've been able to use these strategies to stay consistent with my practice. These aren't your typical tips. You might not have tried them before. And best of all, these strategies are rooted in the philosophy of yoga, specifically the Niyamas. There are 3 of them, which are my absolute favorite, and they are something that you can practice anytime in anything that you do. And they are discipline, self-study, and devotion. You can apply these 3 philosophical principles in yoga to anything, whether it's preparing meals for the week, whether it's taking care of your children, whether it's your workout schedule, or staying consistent with anything in your life. Devotion, self-study, and discipline are the key. So let's dive in. The problem with modern schedules is that as an urban professional, living in a big city, you're busy, your plate is already super full. You likely work long hours that drain your energy. Your evening commitments like meal prep or family time eat into your free time. And the demands of city life, like I live in the city of Toronto. If you live in any major metropolitan city, I can imagine that between commuting and social obligations and managing a household, all of that combined leaves very little room for your self-care. And so without a consistency in your yoga practice, the effects of all of these demands can quickly add up. What are these effects? Your physical discomfort, if you're sitting at a desk and working away, or maybe you have a super active job and you're just constantly on your feet. Maybe you're in the service industry, but you're not taking care of your body and giving yourself the proper rest. Issues like back pain, tight hips, they start to linger. They hang around for longer than they need to. Mentally, your mind can end up being cluttered, and that can lead to frustration and anxiety and exhaustion. You end up taking out some of that frustration maybe on people around you. But really, the issue is that you haven't been carving out the time for your own self. And over time, neglecting your body and your mind can lead to chronic stress and health issues. And the solution is a practice that's built on those niyamas that I talked about: discipline, awareness, and devotion. So secret number 1, schedule it in. To make yoga a regular part of your life, you got to schedule it. Yes, it's that simple. And I say this in classes all the time, that simple is not easy. Use a tool that you already rely on. For example, Google Calendar or a physical planner. Are you a digital person? Or are you a write it down with a pen and paper type of person? Whatever you use to plan your life, write it down or type it in when you're going to get your practice in. Look at your week ahead and carve out realistic time slots for your practice, whether it's a morning session before you go to work, or a midday reset because you're working from home, or an evening wind down. Whichever it is, start small. Commit to just 3 classes a week or 3 sessions a week. That is more than enough to make a noticeable difference without overwhelming your schedule. I do this with my strength training because I found that trying to get 4 or 5 workouts in at the gym was really overwhelming while also balancing a parenting schedule and looking after my kids. When I took it down to 3 days a week, it just felt so much more spacious. I felt good about myself because I was able to actually hit my goals and work out 3 days a week consistently for weeks and months at a time. And I just realized, if I have the extra time in my life to add in a 4th or 5th gym session, then I'll go ahead and do it. But for the most part, 3 times a week has been more than enough to keep my body feeling good, to keep my energy levels up, and to stay mentally strong. What happens when you physically schedule yoga or anything into your day? You end up training your subconscious mind to prioritize it. Learning about the subconscious mind was a big part of my early Lululemon journey 14 years ago, and learning about how to speak to yourself and think in your brain in a way that trains your subconscious on positive habits. This isn't just about making it convenient. It's really about creating a non-negotiable habit. So schedule it in and make that a non-negotiable. Secret number 2 is build self-awareness into your routines. Consistency isn't just about showing up, but it's about creating an environment where showing up feels supernatural. And you want to ask yourself, do your morning and evening routines support your well-being? Are there moments where you can stack habits, like practicing yoga while listening to a podcast or during a commercial break? I often reference in yoga classes the TV watching asanas, ones that you can practice while easily catching your favorite show or watching the game. Obviously, this is not my favorite way to practice, but again, find a way to squeeze it in one way or the other. And then the third thing to consider, are you setting realistic bedtime and wake up goals to ensure you're rested and ready for your day? This one probably should come with like a little bit of a trigger warning, but I know going to bed early is not the easiest thing for a lot of us, especially when our time is limited. But for example, say your goal is to be asleep by 10 p.m. If 10 o'clock hits and that's when you start like being like turning off the TV and winding things down, by the time you actually get comfortable and into bed, it's going to be well after 10 p.m. So what I would suggest and what I do for myself, I have a 10 p.m. bedtime goal, is I set a 9 p.m. reminder on my phone. The iPhones come with those sleep schedules that you can have reminders, and it turns everything into do not disturb mode by 9 o'clock. And that reminds me to turn off my screens and tidy up my place and actually plan my next day. So once that happens, I use that hour to kind of look around the kitchen and tidy anything up so that my evening routine actually supports my wake up routine. I want to wake up to a clean space. That's something I've learned is important to me. I don't want to have to clean dishes before I have to make a cup of coffee in the morning when I'm half asleep still. So I plan my evening to support my morning, right? So this not only ensures better sleep when you do this, but it really sets you up to have a more mindful, productive, successful morning the next day. And that alone will make it easier for you to fit in something like your yoga or meditation practice. So why does this work? Again, these are 2 super simple tactics. Schedule it in and have self-awareness around your morning and evening routines. This works because it encourages discipline, self-study, and devotion. The devotion piece here is to your healthiest self, taking care of your wellness and your health, not just for today, but for the future, for your long term. That is devotion, right? And these are foundational aspects in the yoga practice and key to building any sustainable habit. By scheduling in your practice and aligning those routines with your goals, you're going to create a framework that supports the best version of yourself. Personally use this method. The biggest change that I had to make was I had to give up the fourth quarter of the game. I had to give up the second half of the football game or the third period of the Toronto Maple Leafs game. I had to give that up. And I realized that when I gave those up, I wasn't really missing anything in terms of joy, happiness. If anything, by staying up to watch the games and experiencing a loss, I was more sad and annoyed and frustrated. That didn't leave me in a good place either. And if you're a Toronto sports fan, you're going to be in that sad, frustrated place more often than not. Sorry. I mean, I'm speaking from experience, so I guess you can't really come at me for that one. But I have personally used this method to stay consistent in my yoga practice and my workouts and in business. People might call it rigid. I've definitely been called rigid before, and I see it as discipline and devotion to my higher self, right? And that's the thing. People around you might not be fully supportive of you doing things that take care of your wellness, but you have to look after you first. And that's all that matters. If people around you want to call you rigid for it, great. If that means I'm getting my 3 yoga practices in and I feel amazing and I'm not triggered by the ebbs and flows of life, I'll take it. I'll take that rigid comment as a compliment. This discipline is what allows me to be the best parent, the best yoga teacher, and the best person that I can be. And when I'm at my best, I can better support the people that are in my life, just like you can. So grab your calendar and start super, super small. Commit to just 3 sessions this week and see where that takes you, right? Build your routines. Something personally that I have been using is the 5 Minute Journal Fit Edition. So I've been a big fan of the 5 Minute Journal for a long time. It's super simple and super easy. But their newer version, the Fit Edition, I love it because it really centers it around your wellness, asks you how you're taking care of yourself. At the beginning of each week, there's a Monday to Sunday page where you can plan your workouts in and you can plan your meals. And I just like it as a bit more of an overview. Again, I'm not planning this to be super structured. I'm not planning in such a way to be super rigid. Like there's movement within it. I'll sometimes write down my plan, but by the end of the week, I may have had to let go of a workout because of a certain situation. Maybe my daughter got sick and had to stay home from school or daycare, or Elias got sick, whatever it might be. I think having a plan is important, but having a plan is what also gives you space to maneuver around it if things come up, right? There's that old adage of planning to fail is failing to plan. Or sorry, I got that backwards. Failing to plan is planning to fail, right? So having a plan doesn't mean you have to absolutely stick with it, but it gives you room that if you deviate from it, it gives you the space to recognize it and come back. Kind of think of it like an anchor. And so if you think about a boat or a ship being anchored in the sea, the anchor is there, but the boat isn't like perfectly still. The boat still has room to maneuver and move with the ebbs and flows of the sea, of the ocean, and the waves. But it still has a strong anchor so that it doesn't get carried away too far. So anytime it comes to, planning and try to stick to doing something every single day, I'm less attached to like streak of like, oh, I did this 3 straight days in a row, 4 straight days in a row, or I was consistent for 3 straight weeks, 4 straight weeks. I'm more concerned about stopping the losing streak. And I've learned this from sports as well. Coaches talk about this all the time. You never want one loss to trickle into 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 losses, and then that becomes the habit. So if you miss a week or you skip a day, that's okay. Use your plan to come back to your anchor, come back to your center. And that should help you build over time a consistent routine. And this is not about instant gratification. This is about delayed gratification. So I'm going to end it there because I definitely just went on a tangent based off of the script and the blog post that's up on my website. But I just felt like that was super important to add in. What's your biggest struggle with staying consistent in your yoga practice? I would love to know from you, whether you're listening to this on Spotify or watching on YouTube, or you've read the blog post, you can comment there too. Please go ahead and share. I'd love to help and hear and read your stories. If this was helpful, if this is something you already do, but you're still struggling to be consistent with, let me know. Hit me up in the comments. And thank you as always for listening, for watching. Make sure you hit like, follow, subscribe, notify, and I'll see you in a week on here. Thank you. Peace and love.